From the very first second, we feel that we are on something different. It can be due to a dialogue, a visual, or even an idea of staging. For Avengers Infinity War, it was a music, a heavy music, which even begins before the appearance of the Marvel logo, and which is accompanied by a distress call. And then the movie begins, and we are literally on the scene of a massacre. The exiled Asgardians, who had been saved at the end of Thor Ragnarok, are almost all dead, and especially Thor was defeated. It's a very dark beginning of the movie. We are kilometers away from the intro scene of an Avengers 2, which glorified the power of heroes, with an epic action music and a bit embarrassing slow motions. Yeah, 2 rooms, 2 atmospheres. So why does this third movie start so heavy? The answer is in one word: Thanos. Thanos is the great antagonist of the Avengers. He was introduced in the MCU from the first Avengers movie, and at the time, he was already presented as being a bit of the final boss.
Matter I do not take seriously, boy.
The character has been teased for years, and so it has inevitably created a lot of expectations among viewers. And who says a lot of expectations also says possible disappointments. And that, the screenwriters of Infinity War know it very well. They know that for Thanos to enter the scene, they have to mark the shot, mark the mind of the spectator, and that from the first seconds. Show that Thanos is not a bad guy, as we could already see in the MCU. And that's why, at his first appearance in the movie, Thanos has already defeated the most powerful of the Avengers. Yes, because the old sock he picks up there, it's Thor. And what is interesting and quite atypical in this intro scene is that the battle is already over. Thanos smoked Thor before the movie even started. And that's not a trivial choice. Showing a fight between Thanos and Thor, it would have been a good way to start the movie in a dynamic way, and it would surely have pleased a good part of the spectators. So if the screenwriters chose not to show it to us, it's for a good reason. In fact, it's like telling us, listen, this fight was so no match that it was not even worth showing it to you. This is how strong Thanos is, and just that, it installs in a very effective way the threat that represents Thanos. And then, as if that was not enough already, just after, Thanos will beat Hulk with bare hands. And above all, he will kill Loki. And what is shocking, it's not that an antagonist kills an important character. No, it's that screenwriters dare to kill this character in the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's so daring that we first think that Loki is not really dead, that there is a ruse, an illusion. But no, this Loki, he is indeed dead. And so we quickly understand that in this movie, unlike the other MCU movies, heroes can die. This is how, in a single scene, the movie installs a much more threatening antagonist than everything we've seen so far in the MCU. An antagonist who is without a doubt one of the best of all pop culture. Besides, we've been talking about antagonists for a while now, but in truth, Thanos is not really an antagonist. He's even the protagonist of the movie. And it's not me who gets that out of my hat, it's the screenwriters themselves who say it in interviews. They wrote Thanos as the protagonist of Infinity War. And so they wrote the Avengers as being Thanos' antagonists. Besides, after the post-generic scene, it's not written the Avengers will come back, like in the 2 previous Avengers movies. No, it's written Thanos will come back. Because the main character of Infinity War, it was indeed him. So the screenwriters wanted to make Thanos the hero of his own story. And that, it has several implications. First, it means that it's the character who has the most screen time. The movie leaves him plenty of time to explain his goal and his motivations, and this without ever demonizing him or implying that he would be wrong or that he would be crazy. On the contrary, Thanos is almost shown to us as the altruistic savior he claims to be. Then Thanos is very humanized, whether it's in the emotions of his face, his relationships with his adoptive daughters, or the suffering he can feel. Because yes, like any good protagonist, Thanos will have to overcome trials and make sacrifices. He even has his own journey as a hero, and it's still an atypical and very bold way to treat the character who is supposed to be, at the base, the final antagonist of your universe. We are really a few light years from the way the first 2 Avengers movies introduced the character, as a really very mean villain, without regret. But above all, what makes Thanos unique as a villain why people remember him, it's especially for that. Thanos is one of the few villains in the history of pop culture to have achieved his goal. And besides, he does not reach it only a little. It's a total victory for him, and that it's still a shock. Because with decades of blockbusters and 10 years of MCU, we had time to assimilate the formula. At the end, the heroes win and the villains lose. That's how it is. That's the rule. But Thanos breaks this rule, and it's so abused that it's hard to believe what we see. All these characters that the public knows and appreciates, who are usually protected by the scenario, are literally being reduced to dust. And it lasts 3 minutes. 3 long minutes. Without music. As if we were no longer in front of a movie, but just in front of a drama. And then there's Spider-Man. Spider-Man's death is by far the most terrible of all. Already, because Spider-Man is probably the most appreciated hero of all time. I can tell you that it was not the same for Doctor Strange, 3 seconds earlier. But above all, what makes this death so terrible is that it is not the death of a superhero. It's the death of a kid, a 16-year-old kid who realizes he's gonna die, and who can't do anything about it. We are probably on the most brutal and devastating defeat that we have seen in cinema in a blockbuster. I don't think any other film from pop culture has ever managed to provoke such a level of despair in its fans. The scene communicates to us a feeling of accomplishment and appeasement, as if the hero had fulfilled his duty, and that he had finally deserved the right to rest. Rather bold, I tell you. And then the film ends, promising us that Thanos will return. But the truth is that this Thanos, he never really came back. Well, okay, he came back for a few minutes, a few very good minutes. But apart from that, the character we find in Endgame is very different, much less wise and subtle. And even if it is justified in the universe of the film, because it is a Thanos of the past, it must be admitted that it is quite frustrating. We are on a much more academic film, with a Thanos treated as a classic antagonist and heroes who save everyone, or almost, and who win in the end. All in a fan service festival. So I'm not saying Endgame is a bad film or a bad conclusion. Just that personally, I find it far from the level of Infinity War, which is and will remain in this industry with over-formatted blockbusters, a little miracle. A little miracle that we owe in large part to Thanos.